Isn't it interesting that Maverick City Music put out the song Refiner just about a year ago, and we were all singing it, and then this year happened. What's up, y'all? It's Rachel Elizabeth, and you're watching Real Talk with Rach, where we talk about real things, because it's the real, honest, sometimes hard, vulnerable things that get us deeper in relationship with others and deeper in intimacy with God. Y'all, last week's subject was hard, but I know that God led me through what I was feeling and experiencing for your benefit, because I've gotten so many responses from that video saying, you made that for me, that was for me, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. And my heart was so touched to know I got to be just a little bit of encouragement in your process. And I'm so privileged that the Lord would trust me with your hearts for that video. So if you reached out to me, thank you. It's really encouraging to know that I'm still on the right track. That said, some of those feelings have been lingering this week, but God has provided time and space to grieve and process. Rather than just feeling it, I actually got to let it out, and I hope some of you get that opportunity too. Whether it takes some physical exertion like punching a punching bag or going for a run or lifting something heavy, physical fitness helps so much with getting your body to respond to what's been locked up emotionally, and it can be really therapeutic. I know from personal experience. And my breakthrough moment this week, although I use the word breakthrough very cautiously, because like I said, I'm still experiencing some of the same emotions, some residual aftershock effects of that experience, because you can't just flip a switch to get rid of grief. But the moments where I actually got to cry and mourn and feel some sense of relief came right after a really great workout. So I encourage you to try. That said, I have officially stepped back into the world of virtual training. I used to do this when I was a full-time personal trainer, but because of my purposefully homeless journey and because of what the Lord has been doing in and with me, I haven't done it for a couple years now. And He just gave me the green light to actually move forward with that, and I'm back in the game, y'all. I'm only doing this for a couple months just to reintroduce myself into the entrepreneurial world, if you will. But I'm excited to see what He does, both in my heart and for the clients that go through this program with me. If you want more information about that, there's a link in the description box below, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. What I'm here to talk to you about is trusting the Lord. And I know that this is a subject we talk about quite often, but there's a specific story that Holy Spirit led me to this past week. Pretty much par for the course, right? But He led me to Daniel chapter 3. Now, Daniel chapter 3 takes place in Babylon during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is not a God-fearing king. However, he does have redemptive moments. That said, Daniel has already been put to the test with his dream interpretation skills, has been promoted into the position of overseer of all of the wise men of the king. And at the end of chapter 2, when he is promoted to that position, he actually does so on one condition, that his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, get to be promoted as well. So, agreeing to this, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are promoted as administrators over the province of Babylon. That's a pretty big deal, but they're not with Daniel. Daniel's in the royal court, and his 3 friends are not. So far in the story, you can imagine that the king sees Daniel pretty often, but he probably could care less about his friends, right? So in chapter 3, what happens is that the king creates this giant golden image of himself and all the wise men and advisors who have been humiliated and shamed and pretty much demoted because of Daniel make this scheme, this plan. Basically, they set up Daniel and his friends to be condemned to death by the same king that just promoted them, because these men do not worship anyone but the living God. So they go to the king with this plan and say, hey king, we've got this great idea. You just made this statue. You need people to acknowledge this statue and your great kingship. What about this? Make this law that says whenever the people of Babylon hear music playing, they have to fall down and worship this statue immediately. And if they don't, they'll be thrown into a fiery furnace. Now, you probably know the end of the story, but what happens is that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are caught not bowing down to the statue because they refuse to worship anyone but Yahweh, our Jesus, the one true living God, who had just prior to this interpreted a dream for the king through Daniel. But at this point, you can imagine the king's not thinking about Daniel. So these three men are caught not worshiping. They're brought before the king. The king gets super angry, and he not only condemns them to the furnace, but he has the furnace actually cranked up. So much so that the guards who were in front of the furnace died without even being inside it, just being nearby it. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are tied up with all of their clothing on and thrown into this furnace. They should have died immediately. However, they did not. Someone looks down and tells the king, "Weren't there just 3 men that you threw into the fire? And I see not just 3 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, but there's actually a 4th man who looks like a son of the gods." So immediately, King Nebuchadnezzar brings them back out of the fire, praising our God who rescued these men out of the fire. And if that's not incredible enough, when they bring these men out, not only is none of their clothing burned, but there's not a single hair on their head that's singed. They are no longer tied up, and they don't even smell like fire. Any of y'all who have been around a campfire or any other kind of fire know that when you leave that fire, everyone knows that you've been around fire. But these guys came out and they didn't even smell like fire. And if you want a cherry on top, not only were they brought out, not only did the king start praising our God over this image, over himself, but he promoted them. Now, hear me. We have all, to some degree or another, been through the fire of refinement this year. The fire of refinement is something that is allowed by God in order to bring out the best of our character and get rid of anything that is not of Him. It's for purifying. Gold goes through the fire to get rid of any impurities. And that's what's happening in your faith as He allows you to walk through the fire. But there's a promise in this. You are never alone in the fire. Not only is God our refiner, tender, gentle, and always watching, never looking away, so that we're never harmed. He is a good Father, and out of love, He does discipline His children, but it's so that our character will be refined. Jesus went through this, so we can expect to go through it. Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. So God is our refiner. He's a good Father who disciplines children He loves, and He's also in it with us. He's not just watching from the sidelines. He is literally walking in the fire with us. And I see this beautiful pattern here. These men were faithful. They were obedient. They didn't do anything wrong. In fact, they did something incredibly right. They knew that they would be thrown in the fire if they didn't deny the Lord. If they bowed to this thing, it would save their lives. But they knew that their God was greater and was capable of rescuing them, no matter what that looked like, if He wanted to. And so they risked their lives by faith and action. Before we know the end of the story, they were martyrs. They were thrown into the fire to their death because of their faith. And yet the miraculous happened and they were saved, they were rescued, and God was with them in it, proving that God actually wants to. It is His will to rescue. It is His desire to see you through. He has no desire to harm you. But these men did nothing to deserve punishment from God. God wasn't punishing them. This was just the result of their faith living itself out in the middle of a perverse world that demanded their attention towards other things that were lesser gods. And instead they chose suffering because it meant they would not deny the greater, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one they knew had power to save them from death. The living, breathing God, not the God made out of metal by human hands that can't breathe and can't speak. And I see something else in this. When you trust God, even unto death, you come out of it better than you were when you went in it. They went in bound, they came out unbound. They went in with fear of being harmed, and they came out unharmed. They went into trauma and came out with no signs of trauma, not even the smell of it. God not only has the power to rescue you unharmed, but He is healer, He is deliverer, and He can bring you out of the fire better than you were before you went into it. And then one last thing I see, as a testament to their faith, these men had just been promoted, and it is so easy to forget who brought you to where you are, who brought you out of the place you were before and promoted you and set you up for success and exalted you. God did. In fact, these men got a promotion because of their friend's relationship with God. Daniel interpreted the king's dream and got promoted and said, "Not unless my crew comes with me." But these men, even though they were promoted by grace, they didn't let it go to their heads, and they kept on worshiping God and didn't fall for this trap. They didn't fall down and worship this idol that the king had set up, even though it may cost them their lives. And that one I actually want to use as a little bit of a loving warning. Do not forget the Lord when He establishes your steps, when He exalts you. Do not forget who exalted you. Because in this life we go from glory to glory, but we are promised that if we walk in the footsteps of Jesus, we will see suffering. But that suffering is the refining, and that refining takes place in fire. And that fire that we experience isn't the same kind of fire that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into, but it is the situations and the circumstances and the climate of our media and world around us. It's persecution, it's bullying, it's trauma, it's divisions and strife, it's quarreling. It is all the chaos that comes with the broken world that we live in right now. And we're going to have seasons of promotion, but we're also going to have seasons of trials. But let me encourage you, we see it in their story, and we'll see it in ours. They were promoted, and then they went through the fire. But right after that, the very same person who meant them harm was praising our God who rescued them out of the fire unharmed. And right after that, He promoted them again. We're moving from glory to glory, and things are always better ahead than before with Jesus. We will walk through fire, but we're not walking through it without Him. And trials are always sandwiched between glory. So whatever you're walking through, you will get through it, and you're not alone in it. So be encouraged. 2020 has taken us through the ringer. We have felt the flames of this fire, but the Lord brings beauty from ashes. He gives joy for mourning and praise for heaviness. And there's always something better ahead than what we've left behind. So keep your eyes on Jesus and walk through confident that those who put their trust in Him will never be put to shame, that He will never leave you, and that all things work together for the good of those who are called according to His purposes. Trust Him. I don't know about you, but if I have to go through a trial anyway, I would rather walk through it with Jesus leading the way than fear being destroyed by it without Him. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share it with a friend who needs it. If you want to support this ministry in any way, there are links in the description box below and in the link in my Instagram bio. I love you and I'm praying for you. Have a great week. Bye.